The UAW strike is getting messier and messier, more complicated as the days go on. It's been over 32 days since the strike has started, and things continue to escalate. Now, this has major implications for anybody that deals with cars in any sort of way, whether you're just simply a consumer that is in need of a new vehicle, or if you're a Turo host renting out cars, or if you're a dealership, auction houses. Anybody who deals with this is going to really complicate the landscape and the environment and affordability of these cars. Now, the mathematics are pretty simple. We're going to go over exactly what this means in terms of the economics of it, and then an update on what's happening and kind of a bleak future outlook. Now, the math is very simple. The longer that the strike goes on, the less supply of new cars we have in the market, and we already had a mega dip in the supply since 2020, which has not recuperated back to 2019 levels. Now, as the strike continues, cars are going to get more expensive, and eventually, when UAW and the big three Detroit automakers reach a deal, cost of doing business is naturally going to go up, because they are asking for increased wages, which is going to increase cost of doing business. No matter where it lands, prices are going to go up with a supply shortage and increased cost of doing business, which means the future looks bleak for car buying, especially from these three companies. And then it affects the overall market because there is still a supply shortage. Now, the true winners in all of this are companies like Tesla, Toyota, and automakers who are looking to break through into the US market from overseas because they don't have these same constraints or issues. They are able to take some of that market share, continue to manufacture vehicles, and lower their prices and get ultra competitive. So now let's go over a fabulous article written by Reuters, and they really explained everything perfectly as it's going on. So it reads, Ford Executive Chairman Bill Ford, which is actually the great-grandson of Henry Ford, on Monday urged the United Auto Workers Union to end the 32-day strike and reach a new labor agreement, and warned of the growing impact to the automaker and the U.S. economy. He said, "We can stop this now." Ford said the strike that expanded last week to shut down the Kentucky truck plant. "I call on UAW colleagues. We need to come together to bring an end to the acrimonious round of talks." Now, the big problem that occurred last week is that the UAW called on the Kentucky plant to strike. Now, the Ford plant that's in Kentucky is actually one of their, if not the most profitable location, because it produces some of their best-selling trucks. And because they ordered a strike on that plant, well, that has major implications for Ford, and it is really going to deteriorate any profits or margins that they could accrue from that plant. So that is really what escalated things. There are more than 34,000 union members working at Ford, GM, and Chrysler parent Stellantis. They're out on strike, and Ford has furloughed about 2,480 other workers, citing impacts of the strike. Now, a lot of workers got furloughed because parts of these plants are striking. It is basically making their jobs not necessary because other parts of production are not moving. And so, unfortunately, some of these folks had to get striked. The UAW did not immediately comment on Ford's remarks. The UAW's walkout at Kentucky Truck, Ford's largest and most profitable assembly operation globally, harms tens of thousands of American workers. Ford said if it continues, it will have a major impact on the American economy. Referring to Ford CEO Jim Farley's lucrative pay package, Fain said Farley should go get a big checkbook, the one Ford uses when it wants to spend millions of company executives on Wall Street giveaways. So Shawn Fain is the head of the UAW, and as you can see, things are getting pretty catty between him and the major execs over at Ford, going all the way to Henry Ford's great-grandson and the CEO, Jim Farley. On Thursday, a senior Ford executive said the automaker was at the limit of what it can spend on higher wages and benefits for the UAW. Its latest offer includes a 23% wage hike through early 2028, which is higher than GM or Stellantis has offered. Ford has said the UAW's proposal would have meant bankruptcy if implemented in 2019. So basically, what they're saying is if they met UAW's demands exactly as stated and they adjusted their balance sheet to their new demands based on 2019, because that's where business is headed towards, is what it sort of looked like in 2019, they would have to file for bankruptcy because it's just not feasible when you look at the math of the business. Now, part of the problem is, yes, in the last couple of years, Ford has taken on record profits, a lot of that due to price inflation since there was so much demand and so little supply, but things have now sort of tipped in a different direction. So there is a lot of this sort of friction between the UAW and its members and the executives over at Ford, kind of debating, well, what is the reality of the business as it stands today and how might it look a couple years out? Ford has long portrayed himself and his family's company as the most union-friendly in the industry, at a message he repeated on Monday. The union has called Ford the enemy, Ford said. It should be Ford and the UAW against Toyota, Honda, Tesla, and all the Chinese companies that want to enter the U.S. market, he added. Harley Shakin, labor professor at University of California, Berkeley, said Ford was looking to speak directly to workers. He's doing it to move the talks in a way that he would find more desirable, he said, but added this is likely not going to work. He said UAW could be targeting and pressuring Ford because it has the best offer on the table, and the union feels it can get the automaker to a deal that it could then pressure GM and Stellantis to match. GM and Stellantis did not immediately comment. So this is the latest news coming out of the UAW strike against the big three automakers. And I think the big worry here, if you look at it purely from an analytical point of view and just looking at the math behind it, is it seems to be a big discrepancy between what the demands are from the UAW and what the balance sheet looks like for these businesses. And essentially, a lot of analysts went and took the demands of the UAW and they sensitized it to their balance sheets and found that they would be taking losses in the billions. So how do you end up sustaining a business that is taking 10, 15, $20 billion losses at the end of the year in order to meet these demands? And it's really hard to kind of find a medium where everybody is happy, a business can thrive and continue to operate and grow, and also where you are paying your workers, a fair wage and they're happy. It's a tough situation either which way you look at it. And so I think it is important to kind of keep an eye on what happens, because it is going to greatly affect the economy, the car prices, the supply in the market, and it's going to make it a little bit tougher for consumers. And it would be a shame to see any of these companies go bankrupt, to see any of these workers lose their jobs or get replaced by automation. And it'll be interesting to see how this all ends up playing out. But this is the latest news, and I'm really curious to know what you guys think will happen if this strike continues to drag out, or even if it comes to a close. Are we in an era where strikes are going to become more prevalent? We saw this with the Writers Union and the Actors Guild in Hollywood. It is now spreading to different businesses like hospitals, with Kaiser Permanente workers striking. So it is interesting to see the times that we're headed in, especially with the advent of AI and its capabilities really progressing so quickly. It does make me think a lot about what is the future of the worker and the skills that we have as humans, and what ends up getting replaced and what ends up thriving. So I'm curious to know what you guys think about it. Comment below, let me know, and I'll catch you in the comment section.